This is one of the rarest, most beautiful, and most illegal reptiles in the entire world. And this is one of the most numerously available pet reptiles and a nuisance to everybody in South Florida. But what if I told you this traveled 8,000 kilometers through the Pacific Ocean and turned into this? Just for full transparency, these green iguanas, Iguana, aren't the closest relatives to Fiji banded iguanas and Tongas and Brachylophus in general. It's actually these guys here, desert iguanas. This is a Tonga banded iguana. They come from the Lau Islands and part of Tonga as well. And at the very end of the episode, I'm going to pair him with his girlfriend for the first time, and you're going to see it. I've never done it before. I wonder what's going to happen. But we're here to discuss how these guys got to where they are. Iguanas, generally, almost every species that there are from the New World. Central America, South America, even parts of the United States, the Caribbean islands, that's where you find iguanas. So how on earth did an animal that is from the New World end up 8,000 kilometers away in the Old World? To be clear, my boy Doug there didn't just evolve into one of these overnight like a Pokemon would. We're talking about millions and millions of years of evolution, but this animal had to start somewhere, and that somewhere was actually a desert iguana. One of the things about the evolution that's interesting is that dietary needs changed. I don't want to get too much into the weeds of how to take care of these species, but Fiji banded iguanas and Tongas eat a lot more insect matter, which is crazy because 34 million years ago, they were herbivores, or their ancestor was. So on top of feeding insects to my Fijis and Tongas, I also feed them this stuff, Missouri tortoise diet. And this makes my life way easier because I can just mash it up and put it into a bowl. And it gives them a little bit more of what they need, in addition to their vegetables and their plant matter, and of course the insects. And if you want some Missouri, Chewy's got you covered right now on Chewy Tortoise Diet, other diets, and Rodent Breeder Diet. There's 15% off. Use the code, hit the link below. If you have rodents that you're trying to breed, you're not gonna get a better bang for your buck and the same quality anywhere else other than Missouri. Link below, 15% off. No matter what animal you have, Missouri's got something for you. So you see that? That is actually him seeing Martha, his girlfriend there. So we're gonna pair them up after, but we'll try to get through this video first. And he is deep in shed because, I mean, why wouldn't you be deep in shed when I'm making a whole video just about you? Dude, chill. Just to put into perspective how bonkers this is the range of where iguanas come from, the desert iguana. And this is where we're gonna find these guys here. This is actually a Tonga banded iguana, but the Fijian archipelago is where you find all Brachylophus species, including the extinct one. And there's another iguana species that's extinct too that was found on Fiji. You see how his colors are darkening up? I really didn't want this video at all to be about breeding, but this is pretty incredible to see. This is my first time seeing this too. So how did iguanas get from here all the way over to here? A raft, duh. Everybody knows Frankie is building. He always is building. He's instinctually obligated to build, usually seafaring, okay. Obviously, I'm kidding. A raft could be something like a bunch of vegetation that is floating throughout the ocean, maybe even trees that are all piled on top of each other. And rafting isn't a new thing. This isn't a new theory. In fact, the leading theory of how monkeys got from the old world to the new world is a raft theory. Now, of course, we're talking about the Atlantic Ocean, a much shorter distance, but maybe more impressive because monkeys are mammals, which means what did they eat through that time period? Because iguanas are reptiles, which means they're ectotherms, sometimes called cold-blooded, which means that they can do things like brumate. They can slow down their body, and if we're talking about an 8,000 kilometer voyage, we're talking about months and months and months at sea. Maybe it was 6, 8, 10, maybe 12 months that they were at sea. Now, we've seen this with iguanas before. We've seen iguanas go from Guadalupe all the way over to here, which is only, 100 plus miles, so much, much shorter. But the fact is, we've seen it happen with our own eyes after a hurricane, and that's generally what the theory is. After a hurricane or maybe a seismic event, a bunch of iguanas, it has to be a bunch, were on a raft, and they floated over to Fiji. Now, you might be thinking, how didn't they get stopped anywhere else? Keep in mind, we're talking 30 to 34 million years ago. So for example, what's right in the middle? Well, Hawaii. Hawaii is where you'd think that they would land. But Hawaii wasn't Hawaii yet, because Hawaii was created by volcanoes, and those volcanoes hadn't created Hawaii 34 million years ago, or not as we know it today. So Fiji is where they landed, and we don't see any evidence from fossils that they were anywhere else. So how did they live on a raft for months? Well, maybe that raft would have food, because desert iguanas, of course, don't really need tons and tons of water, and they can live a long time without food. Desert iguanas get almost all of their water from their food. So if there was vegetation in this raft, kind of like a built-in galley in the raft, they would have been okay eating that matter. And then they would have slowed down quite a bit when they realized there was no water and there was no food. And if they needed water, well, sometimes it rains and that would collect on the raft. You might get morning dew, but they're definitely not drinking seawater. Still, 8,000 kilometers is nothing to sneeze at. 8,000 kilometers is a fifth of the Earth. This is an immeasurable, mind-boggling thing that we're thinking is happening here. Keep in mind, when they hit Fiji, they're going to need tons, or at least several, specimens of iguana that have survived the journey in order to procreate and then populate the island. It's not like we had, a mommy and a daddy iguana show up and then that's not really how it worked. It would have had to been a population. This isn't a Noah's Ark theory here. There'd have to be a bunch of them. And the chances are, if it's months and months and months, some of them, or maybe most of them, didn't live. So we're talking about a pretty big population here. But Fiji is one of the best places for them to end up. It's the perfect climate for basically anything, and almost anything could be invasive in Fiji. And there are no natural predators. I mean, besides birds. Of course, there are birds that could have snatched them up, but this is a very densely forested island. And this is even so 30 to 34 million years ago. You'd have to think that an iguana would have to have tons and tons of cover and tons of vegetation and tons of things to eat in order to repopulate and breed and grow and recover. That's the other thing. These animals that came across are going to be in bad shape, most likely. So it has to be the perfect place. Is it possible that this has happened before and then just the iguanas didn't survive because there was predators or there was no vegetation? Maybe. But Fiji, we know for sure that they live, and we know for sure because of DNA that their most closely related ancestor is the ancestor, not the current version of desert iguanas. So keep in mind, I say desert iguana, it's not like the one we have today. It's the one that was 34 million years ago. That was the ancestor of their descendants, which are common desert iguanas. So desert iguanas and Fiji iguanas kind of tree up and have the same sort of ancestor. What's really interesting is 34 million years is a really long time. We know that, but the difference. Now there are similarities. Look at the snouts and the faces and how slender they are. These animals that came from the southwest of the United States and that area of the world, in comparison to the Fiji and Tonga banded iguanas and the crested iguanas, is pretty remarkably similar. Although we know that on Fiji there was a Brachylophus species that is now no longer, it is extinct, that was much bigger, and there was another iguana species that was much bigger than that is not part of the Brachylophus genus, and this is likely due to hunting. Primitive people, or people from a long time ago, probably hunted them to extinction, but it was much bigger and probably terrestrial, similar to desert iguanas. Where Brachylophus, as we know them now, are generally arboreal or semi-arboreal animals, and they're much smaller than the green iguana. Of course, these are endangered species now, mostly due to humans, if not directly from poaching them and hunting them, but because we introduced a bunch of things to the island that aren't supposed to be there. Remember how I said that they had no natural predators? Well, that's exactly it. No natural predators, or very few. Now all of a sudden, we've introduced a bunch of animals, mongoose, rats, pigs, that are decimating. And not only are they decimating the population, but deforestation is another thing. And there are 4 species of Brachylophus that are still extant. The Lau, which are the Tongas, which are introduced to Tonga by humans, most likely. The Gao, which come from the Gao Islands. If I'm mispronouncing this, I'm so sorry. The Fiji crested iguanas, which are super interesting, and 90% of their population lives on this one island right here. These ones are super cool, and I want them really bad, but if I told you the price tag, you wouldn't even freaking believe me. It's insane. And then the ones that everyone thinks of, which is the bula bula, Brachylophus bula bula, the Fiji banded iguanas. All of them are endangered some sort or another, critically endangered, whatever. Either way, it's important to conserve this species. It's an amazing species who has an amazing origin, absolutely fantastic. I'm obsessed with the species. You guys know this. I literally have a freaking tattoo of a Fiji banded iguana on my arm. I love them. And although breeding in captivity, probably we're never going to introduce them back into the wild, likely from breeders like me who aren't in a laboratory. I'm just doing it because I want more people to have them, because in my opinion, they're the perfect pet reptile. And that's what we're trying to do here. So this is the part that I'm really excited to show you. Let's introduce Frankie and Martha for the very first time. So we're gonna take Martha and we're gonna put her inside of Frankie's enclosure. We've redone this. This is now something like 270 gallons or something like that. It's huge, 3 feet tall, 4 feet wide, and 4 feet deep. It's much bigger than what a Fiji banded iguana needs, but I figure maybe we can leave these guys in there for extended periods of time. Anyway, enough rambling. This is Martha and this is Frankie, and they're gonna meet for the very first time. The giddy, non-stop novelty of keeping reptiles sometimes wears off, but for me, keeping these reptiles and putting them together for the first time, that is something special. I realize this isn't the first breeding, and this species has other breeders and likely will not go extinct in captivity, but still, the way that these animals interact with each other, two animals I know very well, watching Martha scurry around, show interest, watching the colors completely change in Frankie and his head bob up and down like he's trying to get her attention, that is something special to see. After 24 hours together, they're doing great. And if you'd like to follow along with the love story of Frankie and Martha, consider hitting like and subscribe. Patreon supporters, thank you so much for your support. And because we do videos on Mondays and Thursdays, that means I'll see you in the next one.